We'll talk about what that means with regards to onboarding and logistics around staffing and managing document reviews. And as you saw in that video, a new normal or a need for an uptick in security and confidentiality with respect to infrastructure. We'll talk about remote team management, client management, and collaboration during a review. And then the last topic there, following on to now to next planning. What does the rest of the year look like and beyond with respect to any of the changes that we see in those service delivery models, given the current pandemic issues? As you all know, as we've been working from home and trying to understand how we can deliver these services in a pandemic environment, the challenges that COVID-19 has presented to all of us, whether we are business owners or we are procurers of document review services, has been quite a challenge. There have been few companies that have built remote review workforces prior to the pandemic, but as an industry, we all had to very quickly get our ducks in a row and figure out how to operate remotely, which meant security and confidentiality concerns, as well as managing and collaboration. Todd, I figured we'd start with you. Your comments on sort of the new world order and proliferation of remote review and why it's important to think about the security and privacy concerns as we spin up multiple review workers throughout the country and throughout the world.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Can everybody hear me okay? We started working with remote reviewers certainly more than 3 or 4 years ago, when the need presented itself for special technical document review teams or foreign language review teams. So the idea of document review teams where some of the participants are not in the office is not new. Now, the COVID-19 thing has surely been an accelerant for this problem. And so almost overnight, all of our between 200 and 300 contract attorneys that we had on our 30 or 40 active review projects had to move home. We regularly work with probably a half dozen managed review shops and document review attorney agencies, and we feel very lucky to have started with SecureReview about 3 years ago, because it made it possible for us to have that much more confidence. We knew the reviewers. We wanted to have a platform in place that could add some information security confidence for us and for our clients, at the same time be respectful of the document review attorney. And I think we'll talk about that some more, but I don't think that the need for additional information security in a work from home or a work anywhere world is new. I think the virus has brought it into stark and rapid relief, obviously. And
Jordon, obviously as the founder and CEO of SecureReview, this is something that you've been working on, even as Todd alluded to, for such a long time. COVID-19 wasn't the reason why you created this. Interested in hearing your viewpoint on sort of the rush to deploy something like SecureReview in this COVID-19 era because of the increased security and privacy concerns that Todd had alluded to. Sorry, Jordon, you may still be on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Now we got you. Thank you.
Perfect. And sorry for the technical issues before I booted up another computer. So hopefully you can hear me well now.
Yes.
Excellent. So the rush to deploy a solution with COVID-19 was quite interesting, because as Todd alluded to, there was some usage of remote review, but that was forced when there was a search for specific resources or specific technical skills, but it wasn't a normal way of operating, especially with some of the more sensitive reviews. So there was a sudden reassessment of how do we go forward with business in a scenario where the clients are used to having reviewers supervised or managed, at least in place with a review manager in brick and mortar. And SecureReview just happened to be at the right place at the right time with technology that we had been working on for a few years to help provide that level of confidence that, first of all, you actually have the person that you think is in front of the PC, and also that PC is protected in a way that would be equivalent to an on-site review scenario. So it all happened very quickly. I would say our phones was kind of ringing off the hooks for the first couple of weeks as the quarantine scenario sunk in, that this was going to be the new normal. And yeah, it's been a very exciting ride, and for us also to move from supporting corporate users to corporate users that are now also using home PCs. And bringing a higher level of security to the environment.
Yeah, and Jordon, also, as the video suggested that we just watched, it's not just from an infrastructure perspective, making sure that we can secure the documents and secure the work product that goes into review of those documents and any changes in those document review repositories. But it's also about making sure that the environment that a reviewer is sitting in, vis-a-vis their workspace, can also have some added security measures as well. As you know, and Todd as well, inside of traditional brick and mortar review shops, you have review leaders and managers that are sitting up a little higher and can oversee the floor and can make sure nobody's taking their cell phone out and can monitor to make sure that there isn't any nefarious activity. Also, the technology concerns or the security concerns lead to a need to have some type of monitoring, not just on the review database, but to your point, Jordon, looking at things through the biometrics, through the camera, to make sure people who say are sitting in front of the document review population are really doing that. So kudos to you for incorporating that into the application. Todd, I'll switch now to onboarding logistics. As someone who has been running document review projects for a very long time, to include those times prior to COVID-19 that you had to find remote reviewers, if you could talk a little bit about the onboarding logistical requirements that you see are in play now that we do have a much larger sort of workforce working from home. Maybe talk a little bit about the infrastructure needs, tracking assets, and those things.
Yeah. Well, it's true that the before the rush prompted by the coronavirus event, we probably would have usually used the agency, the contract attorney agency or managed review shop that we're working with would have supplied hardware. We've sent out hardware to remote reviewers, and you rely on the IT departments of either the law firm or the agency to manage that. And when the numbers are small, it's fine. But the onboarding, the selecting of the review attorneys, conflicts clearance and subject matter clearance, that stuff doesn't really change. One of the things that is a challenge is communication in the early days, and you don't want your witness your document review prep, your outlines, your issue outlines to be going out to individual contract attorneys' Gmail accounts. And I'm not even entirely comfortable having that content always go out to the review agency's email infrastructure. So the idea, one of the really important things about the way we approach this was that the SecureReview creates a matter, what I've called a matter-specific infrastructure. The email infrastructure, the the documents that need to be shared amongst the team are all inside the SecureReview bubble, and we can control with whitelists who can talk to who, where the individuals can send emails. We have an associate sitting in my firm can interact with a contract document reviewer in Asheville, North Carolina, and they can mail stuff back and forth to one another, even attach documents, and I don't have to worry about where that stuff's going to end up. In terms of the team coordination, fielding questions, changing the issues that people are looking for, the sort of tactical day-to-day management of the review, it all happens inside that SecureReview bubble. Before I stop talking, I'll say one other thing. When we look at the document review, and we in the brick and mortar world that you were alluding to, with everybody sitting in one big room, very often we encountered document reviews where the content was sensitive such that we needed to take people's cell phones away and lock down the computers so that they could only go to one website and things like that. The idea of putting constraints around the information access and information utilities that those document review lawyers have. I've been very sensitive to that as well, because people have lives and they need to keep track of their kids and they need to keep track of their fantasy football leagues. And there's really no reason that they can't have that during the day as well. And so even if it's just to listen to Spotify, one of the things that we worked with SecureReview on is to build the kind of flexibility into this matter-specific infrastructure that recognizes the sort of practical requirements of these lawyers' daily lives as well.
And Jordon, before we move deeper into that matter-specific infrastructure, I'd just like to go back to a point that Todd made a few moments ago. The reworking of your onboarding process to include HR, recruiting, IT, asset tracking, all of those things need to be re-looked at, if you will, in a post-COVID-19 or work from home scenario. You have to make sure that when you're sending out laptops to folks all across the country, are you providing them with instructions on how to return that laptop when a project is over or when their employment is over? Are you making sure that from an IT perspective, you have the ability to securely wipe those devices, in addition to any security measures that we're taking in place with the matter-specific infrastructure, like a tool like SecureReview provides? You still need to make sure that the general day-to-day IT privacy and security requirements are followed, and it gives you a good opportunity to take a look at those policies and procedures, working directly with your chief information officer, your chief tech officer, chief privacy officer, making sure all those things are good to go. But Jordon, again, to continue on what Todd was saying about the matter-specific infrastructure, if you could talk to us a little bit about why you believed matter-specific infrastructure was important, why that's a foundational element of SecureReview, and then also the concept there that we have listed about protecting the edge of the edge as we continue to sort of push requirements and push reasons why we need to rely on other organizations, why that concept of protecting the edge of the edge is important.
Absolutely. So just getting back to matter-specific infrastructure, the idea is that around a project or a matter, some data is going to be created. And we want to provide assurances to our clients and our clients' clients that at the end of a project, any artifacts from that matter, whether there's any cached or anything in email, will be completely and permanently removed. It's kind of like, in a movie scene when you say, I was never here. So we want to make sure that the data was never there at the end of the project. And that is done by using a concept that we call matter-specific infrastructure to architect data storage and data backups in such a way that we have full control over the existence of the information and the removal of the information at the project level. When it comes to email, for example, one of the IT challenges in a traditional email architecture is that you'll have emails pertaining to different projects, which are commingled with perhaps different retention schedules and backups and so forth. And so, in a situation where a project is over, but backups exist of email and perhaps another third-party email systems that you don't control, it becomes very difficult to certify that at the end of the project, data is gone. So we try to keep things very simple using this matter-specific infrastructure to provide assurances that at the end of the security bubble, which is SecureReview in this particular case, that we can certify that the data is gone. And if you're using SecureReview as a bastion to get into other systems, there will be nothing left on the platform.
Yeah, that is so important, Jordon. As someone who manages teams for document reviewers, it is certainly a concern of mine, as Todd mentioned a few moments ago. As we wrap reviews up, as we go back to our clients to confirm that all of the information has been removed, so that, God forbid, there isn't another matter that relies on some of that information, and now they have bits and pieces of that stuff rolling around in their provider's email system, on various collaboration suites, or sitting in a My Documents or a desktop folder because someone decided to pull it down and look at the training material one more time. It's very important to have those tight controls on the backs of when a project completes. Before we go into that concept again of protecting the edge, Todd, you had talked about the importance of human endpoint security with respect to the biometrics coming out of the webcam, making sure someone, the person who you've hired, is sitting in front of the machine doing document review. Why is that important? I think that's probably an obvious answer, but more importantly, how has a tool like SecureReview helped promote, making sure that whomever you are hiring is the only person sitting in front of the camera reviewing those documents?
Yeah. It's not a big issue when everybody's in the same room together, right? In the brick and mortar scenario, but all of a sudden we had, an army of contract lawyers off to their homes, and when we say remote review, I for one really mean review from home, not remote review. I don't want people, at some point we'll be able to sit in the Starbucks and use the Wi-Fi again, and I don't really want the document reviews happening there. So remote review for me means work from a designated space. That's a designated space within your home. And one of the nice features of SecureReview is if there's two people in front of the monitor, the screen goes blank. I mean, if it's not the person that is registered to be using that SecureReview instance to review those documents or to have access to that material, then the screen blanks. Now, that's very important, as we learned from experience over the last few years that a lot of the folks doing document review today, perfectly fine, good, just people with JDs, have roommates and spouses and significant others that all work they're all in the same industry, and I want to make sure that only the contract attorney, the document review attorney that I hired to look at that content, looks at that content.
It certainly helps you stand behind your affirmation of non-conflicts, right, with some of your clients. And Jordon, also maybe elaborate on not just the biometrics of facial recognition and shutting the screen down when you see two faces, but also limitations on the application only working from specific IP addresses, the concept around only whitelisting certain websites so that there can't be another screen open where you could drag and drop something to a Dropbox of that nature. Do you mind talking just a few moments on that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So here we're talking about we call it human endpoint security. So there are a few things that we're trying to achieve. First of all, is to ensure that the right person is sitting in front of the PC. And of course, we use the webcam. I'll take a little detour here. So we've been trying to balance both privacy considerations with regards to identifying someone via a face profile, and the needs to also know who's in front of the PC. So we've done that by having a piece of software running on the computer. It's called Session Guardian, so that the webcam traffic is only going between essentially the user and their own PC. So we're not transmitting any of this information over the internet to a central repository. And this is very important to ensure the privacy, any privacy issues for the individual reviewer or whoever happens to be using our platform. Once we know that the right person is sitting in front of the PC, we can also tell when they leave. So when they get up, the screen will get blank. For example, if they need to take a break, or if someone else approaches the PC as well, the screen will get blanked as well. So it provides a nice, clean desktop, a screen blanking type situation. But beyond knowing who is in front of the PC, we also want to know that they're logging in from the correct location, and they're in fact logging in also from the authorized PC. So there's a few extra levels. So as Todd was saying, we want to make sure that they're perhaps not in Starbucks. Maybe one day we will be working in Starbucks again. I don't know. But so if the agreement is that the reviewer is working from a designated home office, for example, or designated location, we can ensure that the computer is logged in from that location. And then we can go further in making sure that the computer is actually the authorized computer. So they don't have a laptop and a PC, and perhaps sometimes they're working from one location or perhaps another location. So it's only that PC. And then there's a few other considerations, which are we want to make it difficult to do screen sharing unless it's allowed. So, I can't do a WebEx and show my confidential information or my client's confidential information somewhere else. I can't take a screenshot. Or, in the unfortunate circumstance that I have some malware on my computer, that malware can't take screenshots of my information and send it somewhere else. So, what we're trying to achieve is something that we're calling, or one of our associates called total lockdown, in a way that's not intrusive, respects privacy, and gives as much confidence as possible that you have the right person logging in from the right location on the right PC with the right security posture, even on the host PC, before they even start logging into the remote repository.
That's all really, really interesting and important stuff, Jordon, because, again, as someone who's managing teams, my responsibility to the clients that we have at Integreon is to make sure that the folks that we hire are doing the right thing, Todd, to your point, to making sure that, they are the only people looking at the documents, and certainly a tool like SecureReview and all of the precautionary measures, Jordon, that you and your company has taken and put into place has been helpful for us to do that. I thought I'd next move to the topic of managing and collaborating. So if you think about this in terms of, when a project comes in, making sure that you have the right employees, making sure that they have the right technology and all set up, then comes the time where we have to train the document review associates. Hopefully that training is done in such a way where we can promote efficiencies, because as we all know, document review is a difficult subject, and the more efficient we can get means the cost associated with that review of documents goes down. But that's really when the rubber meets the road. How do we take, earlier to Todd's point, an army of reviewers in a very large training room who are all looking at the same screen, looking at the same documents, have an opportunity to ask questions in real time about what they're seeing? How do we transition that to a work from home environment using a tool like SecureReview to really lock down all of the information in that matter-specific infrastructure. So, Todd, I'll start with you again. If you could, maybe just give some ideas and thoughts about not only training, but in the middle of the review, how can we collaborate using this technology, both internally from team member to team member, document reviewer to team lead, but also externally with the law firms that represent our clients, just to make sure that we know from a status check perspective where folks are.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned earlier, that email, notwithstanding the explosion of Zoom and Skype and Slack and all that, at least in our world, email is still the primary means for communication and coordination of the teams. And even when the 20 or 30 document reviewers were across town, it's a whole lot easier for the lawyers inside my firm to communicate with the document review team via email. Now, again, I don't want to repeat myself, but one of our concerns is that the important content, the key documents, right? I mean, if the document reviewers find hot documents and they PDF them and mail them to the associates and have a colloquy back and forth about those documents, I don't really want that email thread and those documents staying in the agency's email system or the agency's third-party backup system. And I'll that most of the team collaboration happens via email, and so having email within the SecureReview bubble, I think, is a very important feature. In terms of productivity and sort of managing the review, another thing that we get, which are our team leads and our senior staff attorneys that run the contractors, what they really like is we get a daily roll call report out of SecureReview when you initiate the SecureReview session. We start a clock. And so, I mean, I know there are some agencies that have substituted the SecureReview start and stop times as either substituted them for time entry or they're using them to validate the attorney's time entries. It can actually make, it seems to me, if I'm the document review attorney, if I have some passive way of capturing my time entry and I don't have to deal with that, that's a win. I also get to compare the time in the relativity database to the time logged in, so I can validate if there's any shenanigans going on. And I'll tee up one thing, which I don't know the details of this, but Jordon can speak to the roadmap for SecureReview. But I mean, one of the things that we're really looking forward to is something like Microsoft Teams or Skype or something like a real, a telepresence chat screen sharing tool that exists within the SecureReview bubble, making it even richer opportunities for collaboration on the team.
Todd, that's a great segue. Jordon, any thoughts? I know our organizations have certainly been working with you around making sure that any collaborative tool, whether it's Teams or something else, is set up appropriately to make sure that content isn't able to leave the secure bubble, if you will. But any thoughts about, from a roadmap perspective, where you're going and the types of things you're looking to implement to help when Todd's teams and my teams are working together with in-house counsel to do a document review?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is actually very near-term roadmap is the implementation of awareness and messaging. So team members can either message themselves or their review managers if they have a question. And then also the ability to do a screen share, whether it's, look at my document, I have a question about it, or perhaps the review manager or someone who's doing a training can go through some, sample hot documents to show what the review is all about. And that also goes back again to the matter-specific infrastructure. We want to make sure when these sensitive things happen or a training video is generated, for example, as a result of a presentation using these collaborative tools, or perhaps there's a chat log, that all that information is still treated as matter specific, as project specific, and that it's just automatic. We know that when the project is closed, all this information is removed. Excuse me.
Let me interrupt. I should say, when the capture of all that matter-specific information, it doesn't necessarily have to be deleted. I mean, there are certainly times where we are obligated to preserve that content. So it becomes an information governance and records management issue. Very often, what you want is for all that information to be gone, as you were saying earlier, where it's like the information, the project was never on that computer, and that's fine. But I want to make sure that the folks listening from the information governance and records management world realize that we're our intention is to give you the option to keep it or destroy it, but you've got it all.
And Todd, that's such a great point, because the trying to make sure you have it all is what has been the bane of existence for since the advent of large-scale team document reviewers, right? How do you make sure that you comb through emails, comb through someone's My Documents folder or their desktop or your DMS if someone mistakenly copied a training document into your DMS? All of those things are situations where we've had to make sure that we had a checkbox and make sure that people were checking those. But to your point, now with a tool like SecureReview, it will all be within the bubble. And so as long as you are keeping it inside that bubble, whether you need to retain it for information governance or legal hold purposes, or needing to get rid of it and blow it up and destroy it, you only need to go to one spot in order to hit the erase or the delete button. Jordon, any thoughts there as well?
No, absolutely. So that is obviously an option that is provided in terms of, do I need to archive it or do I need to remove it? Keeping everything inside the bubble is important. Just understand that, as we deploy these tools, we will not allow even a super user to access or collaborate outside the bubble. So someone on their phone, for example, being able to do a chat with a user inside the bubble. That might be annoying sometimes, but there is sometimes a cost to security to making sure that there's absolutely no potential piercing of the security from the inside to the outside. So that's really the interesting thing about the security bubble, the matter-specific infrastructure, providing a level of comfort again to our clients and our clients' clients that there is complete data isolation and no linkage once we have these collaboration tools in place.
And Jordon, on the topic of productivity, as we're talking about managing teams, Todd brought up a great point. Time entry and billing certainly is a necessary evil when it comes to managing document review teams. And it's really important, certainly for our corporate clients, to make sure that we're being efficient and we're only billing for time that's associated with reviewing documents and adding work product. Talk about some of the things that SecureReview has put in place to assist with the team leaders and the project managers, and also with outside counsel who are monitoring, the productivity of the review teams. Talk about those reports that you're able to provide to cross-check and sense-check the level of effort that's going into those document review teams.
Yeah, absolutely. So we provide a series of reports on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and soon on a portal as well, where we will have the login times and the logout times of all the users. And so you can have a summary of information of hours, which potentially could also be fed into a time sheet or time and billing system wanted to. Then another important point is it will also draw attention to perhaps users that are not logging in, especially on large reviews where they may be perhaps logging in from many different locations. Sometimes users drop off and you might not realize that. So it's not only who's logging in and who's logging out, but who hasn't logged in, and perhaps the question is raised. Perhaps they went on vacation, or perhaps they're no longer on the review and things need to get shut down. So this provides, I'll call it bookend reports, where you can compare essentially either timesheets against actual login times to logout times, and perhaps also to any productivity that you have through other reports. So these are useful kind of day-to-day management tools that we provide.
And Todd, I'm sure a firm like Covington is using that information just as we are at Integreon to validate billings that we send on to our clients for these types of projects, specifically making sure that someone who says that they've logged in for 8 hours only got through 100 documents, right? Well, let's cross-check Jordon's reports to make sure that they were logged into SecureReview for quite some time. Are you able to generate those types of reporting and statistics for your clients based on, sense checking some of the information that Jordon has given you?
Absolutely. I mean, we've been working with SecureReview for several years now, and our model right now, I have about 33 senior staff attorneys that we before the COVID-19 event, we deployed those senior staff attorneys out to the managed review shops and the agencies. And to, as I say, to run the project, to run the review on site with the reviewers. Now, with everybody working from home, obviously that role has changed somewhat, but the daily roll call reports, the in and out reports during the day, and as you point out, because of the data that we get from the SecureReview system, we can identify a couple of reviewers who were logged in for 10 hours and got through 100 documents. Now, maybe that's because they hit a patch of 100 really dense, important documents and didn't raise their hand. And so it gives us the opportunity to have a conversation. It gives us some insight that the work from home has hampered. If you're all in one room and there's a whole lot more colloquy going on, that's certainly better, but we have to, we've had to adjust, and the more information we have about what's going on, the better. And this information from SecureReview, from a sort of, as I say, from a tactical management standpoint, has been really, really, really important.
And I am cognizant, I do want to leave about 10 minutes or so for questions. So we have just about five more minutes to finalize sort of some of the topics that we were talking about. As I sit back and look at our business at Integreon and how we are potentially reshaping our service offering, again, to get through 2020, where we still have certainly a number of things to worry about specific to COVID-19 and other things going on in the world right now. I also look to, next year and how are we going to plan for operating a document review business that may or may not be able to go back into an office. And if we do, what may happen in the fall, as many are fearing and some are predicting that there could be a new wave of the virus in the fall. I believe, Todd, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, it is going to be impossible from my perspective to unring the bell on work from home and review from home. Again, making sure that they are at home and not at your local Starbucks or, even at a 50% rule, but making sure that they are in a safe workspace at home. Your thoughts on if your corporate clients or corporate clients that you would be advising should maintain their potential posture about making sure that reviewers are in a traditional brick and mortar shop, or are you okay with advising your clients that review from home, as long as it's set up in a secure and collaborative fashion, is the new normal?
Well, I mean, it won't surprise anyone to hear. I do think that we're not going to be able to put this genie back in the bottle. I would guess that half of our document reviewers are going to be working from home from now on. I think the economics of it. I mean, look, I'm not running a document review shop right now, but I got to believe that the economics of having the brick and mortar space is a big chunk of what it costs to run the operation. And if you don't need to have that, then the economics of it are pretty self-explanatory. I think it's important to realize, I mean, at least I think so, that we were using SecureReview, that this notion of a matter or project-specific infrastructure, we were using that before, for the last few years. even when everybody is sitting across town in a document review space, I don't want the content on the agency's computers or the agency's email, let alone on individuals' personal computers and in their Gmail accounts. So I don't think this changes. I mean, for us, we've been requiring secure review on all of our projects for a long time. To your point about unringing the bell, I can't imagine that in a typical document review project that we won't have at least a third, probably a half of the people working from home. And we're going to go back to projects where because of ITAR or other information security regime requirements, we will have to have the people in a building where they walk through metal detectors and we take away their phones and they sit at that's going to come back, and that will be great when we can go back to that for those select cases. But I don't know that in this current moment between now and the end of the year, we're certainly not going to. I mean, I don't think any business is going to make their people get on public transportation and get into a building to do the work. And we certainly wouldn't want to. We wouldn't project that on the document review agencies or the partners, the vendors that we work with. I'll add one more note that we've had some very good success in a particularly interesting niche application of this, which is in a patent litigation we've done. Where there has been source code review, where there's been incredible strictures required by our corporate clients on who can have access to the source code. In the time of the coronavirus, we couldn't make people sit in a secure room and use an air-gapped computer. So we did what is not exactly the same, but arguably the next best thing, and set up a sort of a customized version of the secure review infrastructure for a source code review, and it's been very successful. We instead of having to stop or postpone these projects, we were able to keep going with the right explanations and rich disclosure of what's possible and what's not possible with software. But as you say, I don't think we go back to the way it was before this entirely.
Yeah, and I just, from my perspective, agree 100%. And certainly I think that technology like SecureReview now becomes table stakes for organizations that are offering document review services specific to work from home, because we need to make sure that we can attest to the security and the confidentiality of all the information therein. I do agree also with you in regards to a specific and distinct nuanced application of the technology, whether it's in a expert-led review around IP, but also on things like contract review or subpoena processing and management of subpoena response. As long as the security infrastructure is there and the bubble is put around document flow and information security, there is many different applications here, as long as the tools are talking to one another. Jordon, in the last little bit here before we move to questions, anything in terms of innovation coming down the pike? You talked already about the collaboration. Would love to know if there's any sort of peeks under the hood that you're willing to provide the folks on this call about what may be coming for tools like SecureReview.
Yeah, absolutely. So on our roadmap, we are looking also to separate our endpoint security solution and provide that to enterprises who may want to manage their own infrastructure and use our endpoint security tool. So that's probably the most interesting thing that we've heard, or we've had from some large enterprises where they say, we love your tool, but we have some infrastructure, and can you make that available to us?
You're talking about using Session Guardian with other applications.
Yeah, we're calling that Session Guardian Enterprise, because right now SecureReview is it's a complete service, from the virtualization platform to the endpoint security, customer service, et cetera. But there are some organizations that have that IT infrastructure in place. They would like to leverage that and push the security using a tool like Session Guardian or software. So that's something that we're going to be doing. In terms of technology, look, there's so many interesting pieces of technology that are available and will become available. They could be better webcams, more secure computers. So we'll be looking at ways to push the envelope to make that endpoint more and more secure as time goes on.
Great, Jordon, thank you very much. Todd, thank you. Let's move it over to questions now. I do see one from Colin. Colin, thank you for submitting it down in the question and answer mode that has now been enabled. Jordon, the question for you is, can businesses use SecureReview to have their law firms monitored on particular matters? I think that question likely goes to, productivity around the law firm and making sure that they are doing what they are saying they are doing, and certainly they are billing you for what they say they are doing. Jordon, any answer to that question, please?
Yeah, sure. So if you want to enable end users that happen to be attorneys at a law firm, that is definitely something that could be done on a specific matter. It's less about active monitoring as much as ensuring that your information stays within that bubble. It's not a traditional use case for SecureReview, but it's something that's entirely possible, perhaps for a sensitive matter that you want to make sure that only a few people have eyes on and are not, perhaps opened on a local PC or desktop.
And I saw Todd smirk there. I'm sure he's waiting for one of his corporate clients to drop in on his webcam one day and make sure that he's sitting in his seat. But no, I think that's absolutely, a good use case and something that we should be thinking about. It certainly isn't traditional proctoring technology, Jordon. It stops short of that for sure. But I think given the productivity metrics and reports that you've been able to put together, as we all know, corporate legal departments are all trying to figure out ways to reduce their costs associated with outside counsel management, outside vendor management, document review services. This might be a good tool to have as corporate legal departments look to try to hone in on the e-discovery or document review costs there.
Yeah, I'll chime in and amplify one point on this, is that we have, as I'm sure most AmLaw 100 firms do, have clients that have increasingly sought to close their matters. I mean, only the lawyers and staff working on the matter with approved, that are approved ahead of time, approved timekeepers, can have access to that content. That's a trend. It's not the majority of our matters by any stretch, but it is a trend. And as I mentioned earlier, there's also some government contracts areas and ITAR areas and some IT matters where the ability to close off the matter, in effect, put a bubble around the matter, who can access it and where that content goes. And then when it's time to attest that all that content has been destroyed, it makes it easier. And we've actually used SecureReview internally for this purpose as well on occasion.
Great. Thank you for that additional clarification, Todd. That's a great point. Colin, I see that you had posted there if there are any more questions. I don't see any, just in case folks haven't found the ability to type in a question. Is there any way we can open up the lines for anyone else that has a particular question?
And so if they have a question, they can raise their hand and I can admit them and I can enable their mics.
Got it.